Hi, it's David Ray here. A very warm welcome to today's edition of People and Politics. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to the show. I'd be very grateful for that. Joining me today to pick over the news and tell me a bit about their story as a leader of the Liberal Democrats here in Scotland, Alex Cole-Hamilton. Welcome to People and Politics. Alice, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Well, it's great to be here, David.
That's great. I'm very grateful for your time. I didn't know where to start today, so I thought if it's okay with you, I'll spend a little bit of time talking about your background and how you came into politics. I was doing a bit of searching on the web, you're from quite a dynasty of people, of really well-to-do people, your mum and dad were both academics, your grandfather was, one was a manager of biscuit factory, one was the archdeacon of Brecon, but they're all descendants of an Irish politician. It's quite a dynasty.
Yeah. Well, it is. Arthur Cole-Hamilton is who you're referring to. Arthur Cole married Letitia Hamilton in 1780. He was MP for Tyrone in the days of William Pitt. So it was probably there, I would say, for the slavery debates. I'm not sure how he voted in that. I hope the right way. And there wasn't much of a Hansard back then. So there's very little of note or record, but it's always sort of tickled me that I'm the second Cole-Hamilton to enter politics and elected politics at that, and goodness, nearly 250 years later. So
yeah,
quite a distance.
It's a bit of distance, yeah. Hey, you went to uni in Aberdeen after Madras College. Were you politically active at university?
Oh, I was, yes, David. I mean, I've been politically active since I was about 14. I was a very political teenager. I very strong views about the world, largely shaped by my Quakerism. So I'm a Quaker. I became a Quaker during the first Gulf War, really out of a revulsion to just, armed conflict generally. And from that stemmed a number of other values. I became vegetarian. I got very active in environmental issues and set up, the school's first ever Amnesty International letter writing society. So from a very early age, I've been very interested in politics, and my liberalism, my being a Lib Dem, walks hand in hand with all of that. So I am really happy and very fortunate to do the job I do.
Was there ever a time that you considered the Labour Party or any other party? Because the Labour, for example, they have quite a socialist agenda.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I ran for student politics, I always stood. This was before I was a Lib Dem. I stood under the sort of banner, the slightly ubiquitous banner, "Independent Left" was my kind of leaning, because I would say I am left wing, but then I would go and attend like conferences with other left wing factions and realized very quickly I wasn't what they are, because I believe in social mobility, in terms of using that actually capitalism and the free market can be, when harnessed correctly, a means of driving progress and eradicating poverty. I rejected some of the very sort of ideological positions of my colleagues. So I think I realized that whilst I am left wing, I'm not a socialist, and I'm a social democrat, and a liberal at that as well. I don't believe that lots of my colleagues on the left would favour big government, big controlling, centralising government, and I don't support that at all. So, they would believe that the workers should own the means of production, and by that they meant they should nationalise everything. And I don't, and whilst I think that has its place, I don't think that always serves what's going on.
Is that your view, or is it the view of the Liberal Democrats in general?
Well, I think that generally, I don't think we should default to a nationalise as the best course of action. I think that sometimes the state has to step in, and that's right. I believe absolutely in a socialised medical system. I believe fundamentally in the principles of the NHS as a state-run institution, free at the point of delivery. Remember, that was established by Beveridge, who was himself a liberal. So yeah, I think it's just that we're not absolutists when it comes to the role of the state or the free market. I think that we recognise that choice, that individual entrepreneurship, that sometimes profit can drive good things, progress, and social mobility, and education is key to that. And so I think we've helpfully succinctly covered reasons why I'm not in the Labour Party and why I'm in the Lib Dems.
Which sounds very positive to me. But I have to confess, when I was thinking about today's conversation, I didn't know where to start. I was wondering where to start, but then I came across a letter that you wrote to the Evening News on the 3rd of January, and it's really, really strong stuff. And I thought that's a lovely place to start, So yeah, you described the budget and the art.
Yeah.
One of the worst budgets since devolution, and and it's a number of things, and that I thought we could talk about, but you must have been pretty teased off with it.
Well, I'm not alone in that, David, and I think it was widely panned and condemned by the national papers, and rightly so, because my goodness, it's a perfect storm. It harms working people in terms of tax increases. Now, obviously, I don't think, for example, people who earn £75,000 are hard up, but there are aspects of the tax burden in Scotland which are now really starting to bite with middle income people who aren't seeing that then turned into enhanced public services. We're cutting back on public services. This budget is cutting the housing budget in the middle of a housing crisis. It's cutting our climate emergency investment capital infrastructure budget in the middle of a climate emergency. And all because of choices and bad decisions that the SNP have taken over the 16, coming up on 17 years that they have been in power. And my goodness, it speaks to a change that we need to see in our society, a change that I hope the Lib Dems will certainly be part of.
Yeah. Because it did seem that, that the SNP seemed to be running council services into the ground. They're cutting budgets all over the place, and that is almost like a deliberate strategy so they can blame Westminster for all. And a lot of these have nothing to do with Westminster.
No, exactly. And they will always try and say it was Westminster's fault.
As choices here in Scotland.
There's choices here in Scotland. You're quite right, David. And they have presided over the quiet death of local government. And, they have ridden a coach and horses through the Verity House Agreement, which was meant to be the new respectful tone and terms under which the government and Scotland's 32 local authorities work together with Humza announcing on the back of a fag packet he was going to freeze council tax, but then not adequately backfill that commitment with actual resource, and that you're going to see services go to the wall, particularly in things like social care and in education. Education is half of what councils do, and is it any wonder then that we're seeing Scotland slide inexorably down the international league tables? Lib Dems are a party of localism. We believe fundamentally that power works best when it works closest to the people it is there to serve. And this is a government that works in completely the opposite direction. They are hoovering power away from our local authorities. Look at the National Care Service. They want to asset strip our social care provision in our communities and put it in the hands of ministers in the Central Belt who don't know anything about the delivery of care, particularly in remote and rural communities.
And I was about to ask you about what you thought of the plans for the National Care Service because they're burning millions on that at the moment, and it seems to be going nowhere fast.
And it's roundly condemned by any stakeholder you listen to. I mean, listen, I'm of the old-fashioned belief that somebody in Ullapool or Strathpeffer, a social care worker there, knows more about the delivery of social care in their community than a minister in Edinburgh. But the SNP don't think that. They want to reverse that. They want to put all of the decision-making in the hands of ministers and officials in this vast and unnecessary bureaucracy, which is going to cost, remember, £2 billion just in setting up, when actually it's not going to improve the offer of care on the ground. If we have extra money, which we don't really, but if we've got £2 billion that you're going to spend on the National Care Service, use it to pay our social carers a decent wage. Make it a profession of choice. Without doing that, then you'll continue to see the problems that we see in our NHS. This winter's seen some of the worst A&E waits in our history. It's got nothing to do with a problem in emergency care. You know, they're absolutely smashing it. They're going through, they're seeing everyone they need to see. They just can't get them out of the ward. They can't get them into the main hospital. Why is that? Because on any given night in Scotland, 1,500 people are in hospital beds in Scottish hospitals who are well enough to go home, but too frail or too vulnerable to go home without a care package that is non-existent. So they have to stay in hospital, sometimes at a cost of £1,000 a night. This is just completely wrong-headed, and the National Care Service is certainly not the answer.
As answer crazy, I think it would be cheaper to give people a care package at home than actually keep them in hospital overnight. That's absolute madness. But there's not the money or the provision to put the appropriate care packages in place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And we need that because without those care packages, first of all, people's life and health outcomes are diminished, because if you're stuck at hospital rather than home, your outcomes are going to be worse. Of course, we know that. It costs £1,000 a night. And the irony is, I'll give you an example, David. I remember a constituent I had who was stuck in hospital for something like 120 nights beyond when he was meant to go home. And every night he was there cost £1,000 to keep him in hospital, keep that bed occupied. Whereas the care package he was waiting for was £150 a night. And yet nobody was willing to spend that money or pay a little bit more for it. So you can see the maths in that. It's ridiculous. We're wasting all this money when we could have had a saving that improved his life outcomes.
It's fantastic, man. But as much as you're running local services, and the underfunding, we're mindful of the fact that the Westminster government in the first 5 years of this term, this government, they did impose massive austerity cuts, and has that had a knock-on effect to Scotland, or are we way past that?
Well, I think that's undeniable. That's obviously, Scotland. Let's be clear, and it's important to scotch one of the fallacies the SNP often peddle, is that actually, we have the tools to raise our own money if we so desire in the tax settlement. Large chunk of Scotland's finances is raised and spent in Scotland. But that said, in Westminster, there is a block grant that comes up from Westminster. It's still bigger than it really ever has been in devolution, albeit that has been eaten up by inflation to a certain degree. So in real terms, it's probably diminished a bit. But again, we've got choices. So I wouldn't spend £2 billion on a national care service. I wouldn't spend several tens of millions of pounds every year on national testing of 4-year-olds, which is ridiculous. It's not the best. It's not what education should be about in our country. And I wouldn't spend all the money that they're spending on the production of independence papers, which we know has cost £11 million in the last 6 months already. So it's about choices, David, and then I'm making the wrong ones.
Are the independence papers, is that coming out of the public purse?
Of course it is, yes. And the reason for that is because, we've asked the civil services is that they have a duty to enact the manifesto of the government of the day. And the government of the day is the SNP and their green acolytes. And that focus has been definitely, part of their manifesto, they lean into the fact their manifesto called for the preparation of the argument of the case for independence. So they have the right to task officials and departments to that end. I mean, we've got a minister for independence, for goodness sake, and he gets a budget of something like 12 to 15 million pounds a year. What is he doing all day? I mean, what is he doing? I mean, I also don't like this. We're playing dress up diplomat, Angus Robertson swanning around, meeting very junior opposition parliamentarians in the Bundesrat or in in other parts of Europe, trying to pretend to be a diplomat, and at massive cost to the public purse.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, Well, when I set this channel up, this podcast, I didn't really plan to make it into like an SNP bashing, but I just found it so satisfying. And so gratifying because we're in such a mess.
It is in such a mess.
And another thing, I was looking at statistics for child poverty, and I know that you've worked extensively in the youth sector. I mean, my young people, I know I think I'm right in saying the way it stands for child poverty are 24% in Scotland, and of that 24%, 69% of these families are working families. Who's responsible for that? Why have we got into this crazy situation?
Well, this is it. I mean, I said earlier the SNP have been in charge for 16 years, and they have not moved the dial on child poverty in the slightest. They have not moved the dial. I do believe in giving credit where credit is due. I think the child payment is a good thing, and I hope that over time we see that to start to come in. But that wasn't, exclusively their idea. Lots of us have been calling for something like that for some time. And you're right. I mean, I'm in politics because of my concern and my love for the children of Scotland. And I was a youth worker for 19 years. I worked with, I was the convener of the Scottish Alliance for Children's Rights. And I worked with a range of organizations helping very marginalized, very traumatized young people. And we're still not getting it right. And this is a government that likes the positive press on things like children's rights, but then took 2.5 years to bring back the rights bill after the Supreme Court had flagged a problem with it, but also this government was quite content to pass an age of criminal responsibility, which is lower than Russia and China. We have worse rights records than Russia and China on children's rights. So it's terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking. And then you've also done a lot on child mental health as well. I'm sure that you were very concerned about children coming over from Ukraine and the effect that would have.
Well, indeed, and I've seen firsthand. We had a Ukrainian guest living with us for 9 months, so I know the trauma that they've been through. But yeah, no, in terms of just our own homegrown kids, if your daughter fell off her bike and broke her arm, she'd be in plaster by the end of the day. But if she came to you with self-harming behavior or suicidal ideation, she joins the longest queue in the National Health Service. Lots of kids nowadays are routinely waiting 2 years for first-line support from child and adolescent mental health. That is a massive proportion of their young lives. It potentially leads situations that could have been resolved to become far worse. and even potentially, well, and all that means for the families around them. This is a hidden epidemic, a hidden pandemic that we have right now, and we are nowhere.
As is the whole health. It's getting better, but it's still a pandemic, and
Yeah.
it's not getting better. Of course, when it comes to child poverty, the SNP would say that, it's all off the back of the Tory austerity cuts, of which the Lib Dems and Nick Clegg was right at the heart of the Tory government at that time. What would you say to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not proud of some of the stuff that happened in coalition. Had I been in the room, I would have pushed back on those decisions. I wasn't in the room. I was a youth worker at the time, and the party's moved on quite a distance. However, I don't regret us taking that role in coalition, and I point to some of the amazing achievements. Like lifting the income tax threshold. That was a Lib Dem initiative. It took more people out of poverty than anything that Tony Blair managed in 13 years of Labour government. It ended the detention of children in asylum cases, was something very passionate to me, and also brought in gay marriage. So there are some massive things that I'm very proud of from the coalition. But yeah, there are decisions that were taken that I disagreed with, but that's politics. It didn't. Decisions that were taken by senior members of my party doesn't necessarily speak to the values of my party, and I'm in charge of my party now, and we're under new management.
Yeah, and that was about that's fine. We can read our thinking 2022 or something like that.
Yes,
So,
21 actually, 21. I've been here
right.
2.5 years.
So are you gonna be setting out your agenda soon as Hunter did a couple of days ago for the run up to the
Yes,
election?
well, we're doing something on Friday, just a small event, to highlight the nature emergency and the sewage problem in our rivers. But yeah, we're in the foothills of an election campaign, David. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And so we will be moving forward with confidence and with hope that we're going to elect more Liberal Democrats, and you're going to be hearing a lot more from us as we get nearer those exciting times.
Good. And everybody's predicting Labour are gonna do better in Scotland this time around because they are making sort of. Do you think that Lib Dems will pick up some more seats?
Yes, I think so, and the polling suggests we'll at least double our number of MPs, because on the notional boundaries we go down to 2, because they carve up some of our seats. But I think there's every chance we will get to 4, probably 5, 6. Who knows? There's no limit to my ambition, and we're just going to keep going out there. My ambition is to get every household in Scotland a Liberal Democrat to go vote for, a candidate to vote for, and a reason to vote for us. And I'm just getting started.
Well, that sounds very exciting. But I wish you all the good luck with that. And
I see your membership form in the post, David.
well, as you know, my membership has lapsed, but I have had membership in the past.
Oh, the Lib Dems. Oh, well, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah, to the Fred McIntosh. I used to help Fred.
Oh, he's a lovely guy,
He's
Fred.
a lovely guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
So
No.
you never know. I might just get him help Fred.
Well, we'd love to have you back.
I'm off with it. Yeah. And I remember, I think it's before, I can't remember the date. I went to a really nice thing up at the hub when Joe Swinson came. And I
Oh,
was,
yeah, that.
yeah,
Yeah.
there, and it was like a big party, and that was great.
I was speaking of that. Yeah, my kids were there as well.
Oh, wait, and
Yeah, no, it was great, and it was a bit of a fairground. It was just in the eve, I think, of the 2019 snap general election.
that'll be right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it didn't go very well for us, but that was a lovely day.
I was about to say it wasn't the best outcome because she
Yeah.
had all that energy in it, and it was great. It was like a big party, but
Well, I'm a big fan of Joe's. I still miss her a lot. I mean, I'm still in touch with her, but she and I kind of came in as young candidates together. So she's very much like my sister in the party. And I think she was ill used by the media during that campaign, and I think she wasn't given a fair hearing. But look, that's politics, and we have to earn the right to be heard. We have to earn the right to go into people's living rooms and give them a positive reason and new hope and a vision to vote for. And that's what I aim to do.
Yes, yeah. As I said, that's politics, but also, sadly, that's the media, and you have to fall on the good side of the media. There's no doubt, but that has a massive implication. So, which is a whole other can of worms.
No, indeed. Well, and yeah, they're not. That's the best advice I was ever given when I became an MSP. Is despite what you might think, they're not your friends. Because I get on very well with the pack, but they will turn on us. And a good story is worth turning on people for. That's
Yeah,
how they see it. So I think the best way to do it is just to be as straight and honest as you can be, to admit your mistakes when you make them, and to learn from them, and then. But yeah, just to be as clear as possible. And my job over the next couple of months is to distill down what's distinctive and what distinctive offer that we have. And I think, that's one of the things we've not really talked about in this podcast is Europe. And I actually do think that the Lib Dems are still the most pro-European party out there. Now, our approach to Europe is pragmatic, it's realistic, it recognizes that Europe wouldn't even have us for years, but it is remorseless, it's unapologetic that we believe as Lib Dems that fundamentally we were better off as full members of the European Union. And that's the direction of travel. We want to, I think, rebuild some of those bridges with Europe, which have been catastrophically ruined by the Tories. And that you'll only get that with the Lib Dems.
yeah, but look at that, and I think bridges have started to be built. Whatnot. I was looking at an interview recently, and so I think we've already started rebuilding and going back towards the European. It'll take it, years, decades, but it's gonna happen. And
It's,
I hope it does because it has just been an almighty disaster for
it
everyone.
has. And I think even Brexiteers recognise that too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
So,
hope you'll be part of that campaign.
oh God, yeah. I felt it. And thank you so much for your time today. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. I really enjoy
Well,
this.
David, it's been a great privilege and a pleasure for me to speak. I've heard your stuff before, and I'm looking forward to hearing you go from strength to strength and welcoming you back into membership of the party.
Thank you. I thought when I did this podcast, I shouldn't be a member of any party if I'm being, if I'm being a joke, but
Scotland's too small for that. It doesn't matter. Honestly, people
so,
will give you the time of day irrespective. So
everybody's got an opinion. So,
everyone's got an opinion.
yeah,
Exactly. That's
and
right.
I can remember. So,
Great stuff. Thank
okay,
you so much, David.
thank you very much again. Okay, take care.